Hi, my name is Emily Young, and I am the Marketing and Communications Manager here at the Lake County Health Department. Today, we're going to be going over top 10 questions for Lyme Disease Awareness Month. I am joined by a couple of folks who are going to give us some information about ticks and Lyme disease, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting with Dr. Ahmed. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for having me. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Sana Ahmed. I am the medical epidemiologist here at Lake County Health Department. And in my programs, we investigate tick-borne diseases and mosquito-borne diseases. And I'm also an infectious disease doctor by trade. So I deal a lot with infected patients. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Ahmed. I'm also here with Mike Adam. Mike Adam, can you introduce yourself and tell us how your role connects to the world of Lyme disease and ticks?
Yes, thank you. Good day to everybody here. My name is Mike Adam. I'm the Deputy Director of Environmental Health in the Health Department. And so I've been involved, my background is in biology. I'm a biologist by training. I've been on a lot of research and surveillance of ticks here in Lake County. So a lot of surveys and looking at different types of ticks and where they're located, and then helping out, working with Dr. Ahmed on the medical side of things. A lot of involvement with ticks and mosquitoes, so I'm glad to join us here today.
Great, thanks guys. All right, so May is Lyme Disease Awareness Month. So I want to start off by talking a little bit about why we recognize and acknowledge Lyme Disease Awareness Month. So Mike, can you kind of kick us off and tell us why we're here and why it's important to talk about this?
Sure. Yeah, May is Lyme Disease Awareness Month or Prevention Month because Lyme disease is the most common tick-borne disease that is out there. And many people are familiar with it. Ticks can actually carry a lot of different kinds of diseases, but Lyme disease is the most common one that we have. And we actually have been seeing the number of human cases of Lyme disease increase not only in Lake County, throughout Illinois, and even throughout the entire country. And then May is always a good time to talk about that because the weather is finally getting nice, which means people are getting out and enjoying the forest preserves and the parks and out in their yards. But it's also when the ticks start becoming more active as well. So it's a great time to be thinking about it, not to be afraid of what's going on, but just being aware of it. So it's an awareness issue to protect yourself and your family and your pets.
Talking about Lyme disease, Dr. Ahmed, can you tell us a little bit about what is Lyme disease and how someone can get Lyme disease?
Sure. So Lyme disease is caused by a bacterium called Borrelia burgdorferi, and it's associated with a tick by the name of Ixodes scapularis, or otherwise known as the deer or black-legged tick. Typically what happens is that sometimes these ticks carry this bacteria, and they can transmit to humans through a tick bite.
So is there any other way that people can get Lyme disease other than tick bites?
No, the primary method of getting infected by this particular bacteria is through a tick bite.
So as we're talking about ticks and staying safe, is it something that all ticks carry, Mike? Do every tick that you encounter, would every tick have Lyme disease?
No, that's a really good question. The answer is actually no, and not all of them will have that. As Dr. Ahmed mentioned, it's carried by the deer tick or the black-legged tick, as it's called, and even the ones, even not all black-legged ticks have carried as well. When we've done our testing, about 35 to 40% of them will have that bacterium, but not all of them will. But you don't want to take a chance, just assume that they all kind of do. And then the other ticks that we have here in Lake County do not transmit Lyme disease, but they can have some other diseases as well. Probably the other most common tick we have is called the dog tick or the wood tick, some people call it. It does not transmit Lyme. It on rare occasions can have some other diseases like Rocky Mountain spotted fever, but we haven't seen too much of that here. But again, it's an awareness thing. Just ticks are not really the greatest things, so let's try to keep them away from us and not take a chance at anything that they might have.
Right. So as we're preparing for these warmer months, we have so many great forest preserves here in Lake County, lots of great activities. Are there some places or activities that put you at a greater risk for these tick-borne diseases, Dr. Ahmed?
Sure. As you were referring to, Emily, ticks tend to live in the outdoor areas. They live in shady, moist areas where there's tall grasses and low shrubs. So any sort of outdoor activity, and it could be somewhere like your own lawn, right? Where if you have tall grass and shrubs where these ticks, are on these grass or shrubs near the ground level, and they can jump off and, cling to your skin, and, you can get the tick bite. So it's really important when you are doing outdoors activities like hiking, walking, running, biking, gardening, fishing, that you are cognizant of potential tick bites and tick-borne diseases.
So we're talking a lot about warmer weather, these activities that people do as we head into summer. Are there certain months, Mike, where ticks are more active? Is it during the summer, during the spring? Is there a specific time, or is it really correlated with the temperature?
Yeah, it certainly is. And I hate to disappoint everybody, but ticks can be active almost year round. Although generally they have the peak in the spring, which is why we're having this awareness campaign right now. In the summer, their activity actually drops a bit because they don't like the hot, dry weather. They don't like to dry out. So their activity drops in the summer, but then they'll have another peak in the fall when the weather cools and gets a little more moisture. But we've actually picked up ticks in the winter. If it's like above 50 degrees, they'll be moving around, but it's primarily this time of year.
Mike, is there a recommended course of action that you would say if someone is removing a tick?
Sure. Well, first of all, if you find a tick just crawling on you and it hasn't bit you yet, there's no chance of getting a disease that way. You can just discard of it and get rid of it. But if it does have a chance to bite you, it'll start embedding themselves into you. A lot of these diseases, as Dr. Ahmed could attest to, need to be attached for a number of period of time before you might be exposed to that particular virus or bacteria. But the best thing to use is to use a simple tweezers, a very sharp-ended tweezers, and actually just grabbing the tick by the head on the very, very close to the skin and pulling straight up with consistent pressure. Don't try to twist it off. Don't try to jerk it off, because you want to make sure you get all the tick pulled out. Now, obviously, don't use some of the misconceptions that are out there. Burning the tick off with matches, not a good idea. Another one that's common is using petroleum jelly, Vaseline, or nail polish, which actually does work. It actually makes the tick kind of start to suffocate and it'll back out. But when you do that, you actually stress the tick out and it'll actually potentially spit back into you, and which could then now introduce that bacteria into you. So you want to make it kind of quick, pull it out, and then you can should wash the site, disinfect the site, and then obviously wash for symptoms later on.
Dr. Ahmed, when is a time, would you say, to consult a medical professional? We're talking about these tick-borne diseases. Are there signs or symptoms you should look for when it might be time to say that you need to call your doctor or seek medical care?
Sure. As Mike mentioned earlier, not all ticks carry the bacteria that causes Lyme disease or other tick-borne diseases. And typically, once a tick attaches to a human and is carrying one of these bacteria that cause these diseases, it takes about 36 to 48 hours for them to transmit that particular bacteria and potentially infect the human being. So when humans are infected, they may start experiencing symptoms of fever, headache, fatigue. Occasionally at the site of where the tick bit, you get a rash. They call it an erythema migrans rash, which is typically a circular red area that has a cleared area in the middle, kind of looks like a bullseye pattern. If you see that, or if you start experiencing symptoms, I think at that point you should definitely go seek a healthcare provider for treatment, because there is treatment for the rash and the symptoms you're having. If left untreated, there is a possibility and risk that the infection could spread to other parts of the body, including the joints, the heart, and the nervous system. So if you do experience symptoms after a tick bite, you should get it checked out by a provider, and they'll run the appropriate tests to try to diagnose and treat you accordingly.
So Mike, we mentioned earlier, we don't want people to be afraid. We want them to enjoy the outdoors this summer, but we also want them to be safe and take those preventative steps against tick bites. So what are some actions that people can take before they get bitten by a tick to stay safe when they're enjoying the outdoors?
Yep, great question. The tick bites are definitely avoidable if you take a few simple precautions. First of all, clothing. You can certainly wear long sleeves, long pants if you can tolerate that. Wearing brighter colored clothing is good because you can then see the tick crawling on you more easily. You can do the fashionable thing and tucking your pants into your socks. Some people still do that. It's a good idea. But insect repellent will oftentimes repel the ticks from crawling on you, especially along your legs and feet, because the ticks tend to be, in the lower hanging areas. And then if you're walking in the forest preserves, just stay on the paths. Those are very well maintained. The ticks aren't going to fly or jump out at you. And then when you get back from your walk outside or being in the yard, check yourself. Take the clothes and you can throw them either in the washer or you can put them in the dryer just on high heat for 10-15 minutes. That should kill the ticks. Or taking a shower. So those are some simple things that you can certainly do. Another thing is if you have a yard, taking care of your yard, making sure the grass is a good length cut. If you have things like wood piles or brush hanging around, you may want to think about removing that because those attract small mammals like chipmunks and mice. And chipmunks and mice, they play a really important role in the whole life cycle of ticks because in the early stages of a tick's life cycle, it prefers to bite those small mammals. And then when they get older, they'll bite people. So it's really important to kind of break that cycle. So those are a few tips that you can use. But again, get out there and enjoy, but just be prepared.
Dr. Ahmed, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it's important, if someone does believe that they've been bitten by a tick, to intervene early and not ignore the symptoms of Lyme disease. So can you talk a little bit about why it's important to have that awareness of those symptoms and seek medical care early on so that it can be cured before things escalate?
Sure. Again, as we had mentioned earlier, that ticks can carry different types of bacteria and can cause Lyme disease and other illnesses. And some of the other illnesses can potentially be serious, like Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and can lead to, even death if left untreated. So if there are individuals who have had a known tick bite, and start experiencing symptoms of headache, fatigue, fever, and a rash, joint pain, joint swelling, any of these things, to go and seek care with a healthcare provider. They will test you for, different illnesses that might be related to ticks, and then they will treat you accordingly. And I think the key message here is that if you are having symptoms, go get evaluated, go get diagnosed, and go get treated with the appropriate antibiotics in the early stages of Lyme disease. Because if it is Lyme disease and you see that characteristic rash, they can treat you right away and you recover rapidly and completely. And there's options for taking antibiotics by mouth. But if you decide to wait and not get treated, and you appear to have recovered, there's always that possibility that you could actually get worse, and that the infection could spread to other parts of the body. And IV antibiotics might be needed, hospitalization might be needed. So again, it's really important if you are having symptoms after a tick bite to get evaluated and treated right away.
Great. Thank you for that. We really want people to make sure that they are taking preventative measures, but also watching out for those symptoms if they are bitten by a tick. Is there any final thoughts that you guys have for folks, as we head into summer and as we're in Lyme Disease Awareness Month? Mike, is there any final thoughts you have?
Well, I think this has been a really great opportunity to share a lot of different things. I think some of the things people may be aware of, but some of them, hopefully they picked up a few things. And again, just reiterating the point that we're very, very fortunate to live here in Lake County with all the resources that we have, natural resources. So get out and enjoy them, but just be prepared. And the same thing goes, with mosquitoes and other things is if you're prepared, you'll go a long way to protecting your health.
Dr. Ahmed, any final thoughts for folks as they head into those warmer months?
Sure. All I would say is enjoy the weather, enjoy the outdoors, but just protect yourself and be smart and make the wise decisions. And if you at any point recognize any of these symptoms, please go ahead and seek out a healthcare provider.
Great. Thank you both so much. Again, this was Top 10 Questions for Lyme Disease Awareness Month. My name is Emily Young, and I was here today with Mike Adam and Dr. Sana Ahmed, both of the Lake County Health Department. We hope that you enjoy the warmer weather and have a safe, tick-free summer.